Hello. At the start I want to say that written version of the guide will be posted in the video description, like always. However, it won't be as detailed as the video one because of the limited space. So if you struggle to replicate the build just from the written guide, please watch the video. I'll explain the build in way more details. So today I will show you my new build for the Monkey King that you can use in the Titan Hunt. The recent patch changed how Immortal Blessing and Divinity trait works, so build pretty much, my old build pretty much stopped working. New build once again is made around Fangs of Doom, because of this character we lack stack skill that could be scaled easily, other than Shrapnel Bomb, which can also be pretty strong. But I prefer to make builds utilizing character-specific skills, using the general ones as a last resort. And also to show that Fangs of Doom is still pretty good, even after the big nerf. This build focuses on late game damage, so I recommend using it in the base Titan Hunt level, maybe Sigil +1. Anything above that might feel pretty bad in first few cycles, as our early game damage isn't that high. Naturally, we run last Sigil to have access to the Void King and its power, and get all possible types of materials, including Void Essence. So we pick third weapon, which gives us access to the Gunpowder Strike that we will using in the build, and in addition to the artifact power. In addition to that, the artifact power gives us 3 Swords of Disoriented, which increases our critical damage, so that's a nice damage boost, saving us 1 Titan passive point, because otherwise we would need to take it from the Spider Totem. So when it comes to runes, since I mostly make those builds as material farmers, I reserve 2 spots of the mineral runes for material runes, which are Material Harvest and the Efficient Extraction. Material Harvest being better for regular materials, so the white, green, blue, pierce, and purple. And Efficient Extraction being better for the Void Essence, also known as boss parts. If you care about prestige levels, you can take Arduous Training over one of the materials runes. For the third minor rune, we take Endless Refill, which provides us with extra rerolls and blocks every cycle. If you don't care about materials or prestige levels and you are running normal run, you can take Reroll Mastery as a second run to have even more rerolls, so that's definitely some extra power. And for the third rune you can take Skill Mastery at Thrust and replace Light Beam with the Flurry, which not only shares physical attacks with our other skills, while the Light Beam is magical, but it also applies Bleed by itself, which means another sort of bleed for bleed to poison synergy that can turn into more doom if lucky. It also generates form, which means you won't need to snapshot resilience to form synergy. I'll be talking about it little more later. With major runes there is pretty much no flexibility at all. You need to take exactly the same 4 runes, otherwise the build will be way weaker or might not work at all. Those 4 runes being Singular Focus, Divine Legacy, Demonic Pact, and Synergetic. So Singular Focus is required to take Gunpowder Strike, one of our skill 4 times. Divine Legacy allows us to force spawn both skill chains passives every 30 levels. Demonic Pact is used to add enough runic power to take Synergetic, and Synergetic is used to boost Poison to Doom's synergy by 50%, and also significantly increase chance of finding it. Since we use Divine Legacy in this build, I highly recommend saving rerolls for rerolling legendary passives. Make sure to always take both Bomb to Slam skill chain and Bomb to Holy skill chain, or Bomb to Trust if you use Flurry instead Light Beam, every single time. So every 30 levels when we get on legendary passives. Third passive is not that important, but if something other than multicast, so for example if it's damage to physical skills, you can also take it. Remember that taking 2 passives will cost only 1 lock, while taking all 3 passives cost 3 locks in total, and because you need to lock the third passive twice. Okay, so for the skills, like I already mentioned, we utilize single focus rune to be able to pick same skill multiple times. Early on, we need to take any skill which generates resilience, so together with the Whirling Defense, which we also take, we have 2 sources of the resilience, which allows us to unlock resilience to form synergy. As soon as we take that synergy once, we can replace that skill to Gunpowder Strike. We take Gunpowder Strike 4 times in total, which is great low cooldown skill, and we use as our skill chain support. In addition to that, it also provides weakness, which gives big damage bonus to Doom, and save us 1 Titan passive point, because otherwise, similar to the Disoriented, if we didn't have source of weakness, we would need to take it from Titan. And also provides bleed, which we use for bleed to poison synergy. Next skill we take is the Whirling Defense, which will be our main Doom generator. It hits 20 times in total, 5 times per second. Combined with skill chains, we can get more than 100 hits per second from this skill alone. In addition, it generates enough Prowess stacks to give us around 900 extra damage, and same amount of resilience stacks. While we don't really care about armor in Titan Hunt, because enemies later on penetrate 19% of it, we use that resilience generation to get form stacks from resilience to form synergy, which gives us around 900 extra crit chance. So we get huge damage bonus from Prowess and Form. And our last skill is Light Beam, or if you go with the skill mastery version, Flurry, which is our second Doom generator. Same as Whirling Defense, it hits 20 times, however it has 2.5 hits per second, so it's a little worse. Flurry, however, has 5 hits per second, same as Whirling Defense. In addition, it applies Exposed, which normally is nice, but it doesn't scale Doom damage nor Fangs of Doom, so in this specific build it's almost useless. We use it only for Exposed to Radiance synergy. Since we also use Divine Legacy rune early on, the strategy is to take only bomb skills, using rerolls if there are none available, and take any slam and holy skills. Before level 40 we need to, not 40, for level 30 we want to have 4 bomb skills, 1 slam skill and 1 holy skill, or at least 1 slam and at least 1 holy skill, so we have access to both skill chains we rely on. Of course, if you already picked Holy or Slam skill and then found the ones we want, take them, even if it means having 2 Holy or 2 Slam skills for some time. Generally, in the perfect scenario would be to have 4 Bomb, 1 Slam and 1 Holy, to not have extra skill chains. So for example, Slam to Holy, Slam to Bomb. But if you happen to have more than one, that's also fine. It just will take you a few more rerolls to find the 2 chains we want to take. When it comes to skill passives, in this build all of our damage comes from Doom and Fangs of Doom, not skills itself. However, increasing damage of skills also increases damage of Doom they apply. Obviously, we also want to trigger skill chains as often as possible, so our top priority are attack speed passives for Gunpowder Strike, to lower cooldown of all 4 of them to 0.15 seconds, which is the lowest possible. Other decent passive is damage to Whirling Defense and damage to Light Beam, although I usually take the only blue tier of those, or green tier if there is nothing better available. Damage to Gunpowder Strike is meaningless, we use those only to trigger skill chains, and since skills triggered by skill chains cannot multicast anymore, multicast for our skills is almost useless. Almost, because it still works on the so-called natural casts, the ones that were not triggered. Area of effect to Whirling Defense is completely useless, ignore it entirely. Same with attack speed to Light Beam. This one is not completely useless, but I pretty much don't take it at all, because we will be triggering the Light Beam from skill chains so often that reducing the normal cooldown of it is barely change anything. For offensive stats passives, naturally our top priority is cast frequency, to lower cooldown of Gunpowder Strike to lowest possible. Once or if you reach that point, you can start ignoring it. After that, the order of other stats doesn't really matter, because we get so much of them from buffs that passives itself won't change much. But here is the order I was following. Our next priority is critical chance, then critical damage, and regular damage at the end. Since we will get a lot of area of effect from Colossal later on, area of effect passives can be ignored entirely. Multicast is banished, because as mentioned earlier, skills triggered by skill chains can't multicast, and it also removes 1 passive from our legendary passives pool. For defensive stats, we take movement speed until we feel fast enough. However, since we also will be taking Leviathan from time to time, you will need to offset that by taking more movement speed. When it comes to HP, it depends on your gameplay. Personally, I almost never get hit, and if I do, it's deeper in when I would get one-shotted, even with a lot of HP. So I only take the HP when there is nothing better available. Armor and block are completely ignored, because later on enemies penetrate 90% of our defense, and also we get a lot of the armor from the resilience stacks we get from the Whirling Defense. Since Magnet, the extra XP passives don't work on the XP we got in the past, the earlier we take them, the stronger they are, which means we want to prioritize them early on, and once we reach around 200 extra XP, so 1000 range, we start to take them only when there is nothing better available. Like I already mentioned earlier, skill chains are one of the most important things in this build, and that's also why we use Divine Legacy Rune to first spawn legendary skill chains every 30 levels. We take two types of them, Bomb to Slam and Bomb to Holy, or Bomb to Trust if you are using the flurry. And depending of the luck, you'll reach between 300 to 400% for each of them at the end of the run. When it comes to negative effects, this time we utilize almost full chain of the synergies. However, we use them just to apply more doom. We don't scale each negative effect further. So we start with bleed, thanks to the Gunpowder Strike. We take bleed on hit, both white and green tier, once, because they count as separate sources and will trigger synergy separately. And on top of that, we take bleed on crit once. We do not take them more than once, and we do not take bleed damage, because we use bleed only for the synergy. Once we find bleed to poison synergy, which we take only once, we have access to poison passives. Similar to bleed, we take poison on hit, both white and green tier, and poison on crit. Again, we take them only once, and we do not take poison damage at all. And once we find poison to doom synergy, we get access to doom passives. Poison to doom synergy is main source of damage in this build, or more like main source of doom. We take it every single time it appears. In addition to that, we want to take doom on hit, both tiers, so both white and green tier, and doom damage as often as it appears, because it will scale our doom damage much better than generic damage passives. If you have a lot of spell locks, you can even lock white tier or doom passives, if it happened to appear along with some good upgrade, so if you want to take both. After we get enough source of doom, we will be able to find doom to burn synergy. However, we do not take it. Burn is useless for us. We also get access to slow passives after beating the first Titan from the Icy Vein power we take. Once again, we want to take slow on hit, white and green tier, and slow on crit. But we only take them once, because we only take them for the synergy. We will be using those for both Disarray synergy and also Brittle synergy, which we take from one of the Titans later. After we got slow passives, we can now also find slow to Disarray synergy, which again we take once. In addition, we take Disarray on hit, white and green tier, and Disarray on crit once. With the insane amount of hits we have in this build, even just slow to Disarray synergy would be enough to reach hard cap of 200 stacks of Disarray for maximum damage boost. However, we also use Disarray for our final synergy, Disarray to bleed, which we take once, connecting our loop. Technically, adding burn on top would create entire loop, so connect it fully. However, it would add few extra useless passives to our pool and one more synergy, which we would need to banish for very small damage panels. So in the end, it's not worth. Monkey King Ascension is pretty bad for Titan Hunt mode, because the timer and progress of it resets the moment we enter Titan Arena. Since it takes so long to activate it that Titans are already dead before we manage to do it, we disable it completely, removing useless passives related to it from our passives pool. You can do it at the starting menu on the right side of the screen before you start the run. I already briefly mentioned synergies when talking about negative effects, but I also want to add more details about it. Poison to Doom synergy is our top priority in this build, and it's also only synergy left that is not banished. We want to banish other synergies because we use synergetic room that increase chance of finding those, so we want to make sure that when we find the synergy is the one we want to get. Resilience to form synergy is only exception from it, because the moment we get rid of the second skill with the resilience, it won't be able to appear anymore, so we don't need to worry about banishing it. This means that we banish Bit to Poison synergy after taking it once. We banish Doom to Burn synergy without taking it at all. We banish Slow to Disarray synergy after taking it once. And we also banish Disarray to Bleed synergy after taking it once. That's 4 out of 10 available banishes. The rest 6 banishes focus on the other rune we take, Divine Legacy. Since every 30 levels we are guaranteed to be offered 3 legendary passives, we also want to reduce legendary passives pool, enough that finding the specific ones we want is easier. Since skill triggered by skill chains cannot multicast, the most useless legendary passives are those that are various types of multicast. So our next banishes are as follow. Multicast to Whirling Defense, multicast to Light Beam, multicast to Gunpowder Strike, multicast to physical skills, and regular multicast. Our last 10th banish is used on area of effect to physical skills, as it's even more useless than multicast, because we are getting insane boost to area of effect from colossal stacks that we get thanks to combo of Titan powers. So now that we know how the build works, what we take, what to not take, and so on, time for another very important aspect, which are Titans and their passives. Order of them is quite important, and passives we take from them is even more important, so I recommend leaving at least 5 rerolls for each Titan to make sure we get the passives we are looking for, and we can reroll for specific Titan as our next cycle. The first Titan we go to is Ainixla, the Ice Bird, and we take Icy Veins from Moving Power. This gives us access to slow passives, which I already explained why they are important. It's not super important to get them right at the start, but I like to get access to this area as soon as possible for big damage boost, so that's why I picked that as the first Titan. Second Titan is Broken, aka the Lizard, from which we take Shattered on hit power. Shattered reduce armor of enemies by fixed amount for Titan Hunt 200 stacks is hard up, so negative 200 armor on enemies. So the more armor enemies get from each cycle, the weaker it gets, but it speeds up early cycles significantly, so we take it even though in late game it's not huge damage bonus anymore. For the third Titan, we go for the Cobalt Twins, Revolt and Valkage, and we take Slow to Brittle synergy. Brittle itself does pretty much nothing in our build, because it doesn't boost Doom damage. However, it will be important for other goddamn, something's getting wrong with my voice. However, it will be important for other Titan power we take later on. For Titan we go for is Midorak the Beetle, from which we take Exposed to Radiance synergy. We have source of Exposed from Light Beam, one of our skill, and Radiance not only will add few more hits to the build, but more importantly it applies Fragility, which is another big damage boost to our build. If you are using version with Flurry instead Light Beam, this Titan will be replaced by Scorpion, the Mesa, and we will be taking Weakness Fragility Synergy instead. After beating 4th Titan, we go to the Void King realm. From Void Hunter, the so-called mini-boss before King, we take 120% cast frequency passives, as it will reduce cooldown of our Gunpowder Strikes significantly. And from the Void King himself, we take chance to apply Wound on crit power. Wound is unique negative effect, which gives us 50% chance to apply double stacks of any other negative effect on the target, including Doom, which is main focus on our build, resulting in 50% more damage on average. After beating the King, our next Titan on the list is Midorak the Beetle again, but this time we take Brittle to Colossal synergy. This is the reason why we needed to take Slow to Brittle before. This power will gives us around 900 extra area of effect, which is definitely nice. However, it is not the main reason why we take it. We once again take it to combine it with other Titan power. 7th Titan on the list is Arwanak, from which the spider, from which we finally take Fangs of Doom, which is pretty much the real damage dealer in this build. This power gives each of our hit 1% chance to deal 1.5% of all Doom damage on the target. Since our build reaches close to 200 hits per second and focuses on increasing Doom damage as much as possible, we don't only proc it quite often, the damage from it is also very nice. In addition, because Doom duration refreshes every time we apply new stacks, it means that Doom damage collected on the target constantly increases over time, meaning this build has a ramping element to it. Our damage will be quite low right at the start of the fight, but the longer we fight, the more DPS we have. Technically, you can increase your damage infinitely, but since we mostly focus on farming materials and doing it efficiently, we stop our runs the moment Titans start to take over a minute to kill. 8th Titan we will be fighting is Midorak the Beetle again. This time we want to take a chance to gain aptitude each time we crit power. With amount of hits this build has in late game, we easily reach 800 or more stacks of aptitude, meaning because each aptitude stack gives 2% crit damage, meaning 1600 to 1800 extra crit damage, giving us huge boost to overall DPS. As 9th Titan we pick Mezahet, again the Scorpion, from which we want to take power, which spawns Soulstone every time we generate 50 stacks of Colossal. As you can guess, this is the reason why we need all those Colossal stacks. Sandstorms not only will apply dazed on hit, which will provide us with extra 200 crit chance, but they also add a lot of extra hit per second that can apply Doom, providing us with even more Doom damage on targets, and they also can trigger Fangs of Doom, boosting our overall DPS. At this point we got all key elements of the build, so next Titans will be so-called filler powers to give us as much extra DPS as we can squeeze from each passive. Since we still want to get extra cast frequency, we will be visiting Midorak the Beetle for its extra cast frequency and crit damage passives. Obviously we cannot spam the same Titan over and over, we also need to find other Titan, so we can weave them both. Other Titan we will be running is Hector, the Ice Giant, from which we will be taking extra crit damage for each unique buff on us. In total we will have 11 buffs in this build, those are being Artifact Power, it also counts, Icy Veins, Radiance, Electrified, Prowess, Resilience, Aptitude, Form, Colossal, Finesse, and haste, meaning that we will get 225% crit damage per each point of these passives. Nothing crazy, but it's still decent, and this Titan is also pretty easy compared to other ones, at least to most of them. So the 10th Titan we will be visiting is Midorak, the beetle, from which we take cast frequency and crit damage passive. 11th Titan will be Hector, from which we take crit damage from each unique buff power. 12th Titan will be Midorak again, from which we take cast frequency and crit damage passives again. 13th Titan will be Hector again, from which we take crit damage from each unique buff again. 14th Titan will be Midorak again, from which we take cast frequency and crit damage passive for the last time. And 15th Titan will be Hector again, from which we take crit damage from each unique buff again. At this point we reach, or we are closing to lowest cooldown possible, 0.15 second on our Gunpowder Strikes, so taking more cast frequency would be pointless, so we look for the new filler Titan, which will replace the beetle. 16th Titan will be Vivolt and Valkage, the twins, Valkage, Valkage, from which we take Radiance to Finesse synergy. The multicast we will get from Finesse doesn't matter too much, but since we take Hector power 5 times in total, each extra buff ends up being extra 125% crit damage. 7th Titan will be Hector again, from which we take crit damage from each unique buff power. 18th Titan will be Vivolt and Valkage again. This time we take chance to generate Electrified each time we cast a skill. We already have Source of Dazed, so we don't care about that part. However, it will add another buff, meaning another 125% crit damage, and it will also provide some extra hits from the sparks, which can apply Doom and trigger Fangs of Doom. 19th Titan will be Aronak, the spider. This time we take chance to gain haste each time we crit. This will provide insane amount of movement speed, which we don't really need, and might make your controlling your character a little hard. But it's also another buff, which is another 125% extra crit damage. If you don't like playing with so much movement speed, because it definitely can be hard, you can take the slowing nuts spawn from 35 stacks of aptitude power instead. 20 Titan will be Hector again, from which we take crit damage from each unique buff power. And for the last 21st Titan, we can pick either Spider or the Mushroom. They're the easiest. We don't care what passives they offer, we are leaving after beating them at this point, because at this point Titans start to take too long to kill for them to be worth farming more, over 1 minute per Titan. So that's all the information related to the build. Hopefully I explained it well enough that you are able to follow it. If you don't understand something about the build or have trouble with specific part of it, let me know in the comment. It's totally possible that I forgot about something, thinking that's obvious, not realizing that for new player it in fact might not be obvious. I try to talk about everything in my guts, but there is a lot of things in those builds. You can also watch the full run of the build in the video I posted yesterday. I'll put link to it in the video description as well. So hope that this build will help you with farming, or maybe you learn something that will help you create your own builds. I will see you in the next one. Have a good day. Bye bye.